That wasn't really the question. The question was, how do you explain the decline of marriages within the white races, and how do you explain the increase of drug use for them too? Because they are also having issues. It's not just us. So I think that
Okay,
blaming segregation might be a stretch, because even if you look at the drug rate, the Census Bureau reports that it's 8% of whites, about 9% of Hispanics, 6% of blacks that are using drugs. So what I'm asking is, how do you explain the decline of the entire nation when we're talking about segregation?
okay, so if I didn't associate segregation with the decline of relationships in marriage. I said that we were better off as a black people. Now, when you bring in other races and you want to talk about the decline of marriage and relationships and all this stuff, I would argue that the anti-man movements, they call it feminism, uh, the ushering in social media and online dating and pornography has crippled the connection and pretty much desensitized the connection we can have amongst each other.
No,
Women,
so
women,
I got it.
women have replaced men with social media validation, comments, likes. A man can't even compete. A woman can post a half naked picture and get a drastic amount of likes and validation, and it'll replace a man. A man
So
a man can't post a nude or whatever and get that same type of validation. There's no way that he can compete with that. And then
I don't
whenever
disagree with any of that, though, Darwin. I don't disagree with any of those factors that you mentioned now, but you mentioned the word segregation like 4 times. So I was
right,
hoping you could tell
but
me how it
I mentioned
correlates to
segregation
segregation.
in the context of black people
But black
excelling.
people weren't excelling. They weren't. They weren't. All you gotta do is look at the wealth data over those times. They weren't.
So
We were a bottom
what were
class
we
then.
not?
We were a bottom
What were
class
we
then. We are
not
a bottom class now.
when we were
Wealth
working?
largely did not move in the black community for the last 100 and some years.
So
No, we
let me
weren't
tell you.
doing better.
So let me tell you what integration kind of did to relationships, and you could say marriage or whatever. I would argue that some of the assistance and some of the aid that was given to black people and their families came at a cost, and it sometimes meant that the black man had to be removed from the household. And if you do that over and over in a repetitive manner over a course of time, that can single-handedly cause a drop in marriage and nuclear families.
Bro, you still trying to blame that on integration. That had nothing to do with integration.
Okay, so if you could say that it had nothing to do with integration, can you give me some context or correct me? I'm willing to listen, and I'm not going to call you a simp. I'm not going to misjudge. I'm not going to mischaracter. I'm just going to try to understand you. And maybe I could be
Darwin,
wrong. And if I'm wrong,
you
I'm
already
wrong.
answered it. You already answered it. Every other factor that you mentioned when I asked you about segregation was correct. You've already answered it.
So Lyndon Johnson, in fact, although good liberal that he was, at least in regard, Lyndon Johnson had a complicated career and changed positions on issues many times. But good liberal though he was at that moment, he was in fact engaging in a breathtaking arrogance.
Yes.
On 2 counts. One, that white people were the ones who were responsible for where black people stood in the race, that it was up to whites entirely. That blacks, as he described, I'm putting this to you, the black people are passive, they're acted upon.
That's right, that's right.
And then the second act of arrogance is the supposition that somehow the federal government could fix it.
Yes. It is staggering. But if you wanted to be charitable, you could say, well, he said this in 1965. But if you say, all right, why are people now repeating it in 2013 when we've had nearly half a century of experience to the contrary? And if you look within the black community, those blacks who had escaped what I call the black redneck culture, they've moved on. So, but it's the culture the different parts of the black community had. They were different.
Mm.
Bruiser,
So what did y'all hear?
Bruiser, if you look at the wealth data, you would know that black wealth largely has not changed over the last 100 years. We are not doing better. In fact, the generation that did actually do the best was the boomer generation. When they had access to home ownership through what program was that? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Where they were actually. You said
getting it
what?
for $1, and we weren't able to buy it.
No,
You
no, no.
understand?
When black boomers were got access to home to buying homes and things like that.
Redlining.
Not redlining, that prevented it.
Mm-hmm. Well, redlining meaning that you couldn't buy in certain areas, so they would pigeonhole you into purchasing in certain areas where the property value wasn't as high. You didn't have the opportunity to buy the land the way they did. You also had white folks had the opportunity to buy land for $1, basically giving it to them, and now that's what's creating this wealth because that land that they got for $1 years ago is now worth $400,000 and $500,000, $600,000, $1 million, and what have you, that we didn't have access to.
Well, look, what I'll say to you,
Mhm.
what I'll say in response to that is, I've read that when we were in unison, when black people were working together and they were segregated, there were times on a timeline where black people had created a large amount of wealth. I think they called it Black Wall Street or something like. We were on the uprise.
Fair Housing Act, my bad.
That
I
is
just remembered.
correct.
Fair Housing Act.
Graph.
You're right.
There was many occasions where the graph was going up, and there was an attack on that caused it to collapse. It was intentional. But then whenever we got integrated and we got introduced to the assistance that was pushed and promoted by Lyndon B. Johnson, nothing happened. We were plateaued. The line never increased. And you just made the point. The black wealth has been the same for 100 years. So what did he market? Didn't he fail? If he can go back, if Lyndon B. Johnson can speak today, he would probably say the reason for that speech is because I anticipated if we give them these assistance, if we give them a crutch, if we give them safety nets, they can catch up with us.
Well, you have
he was fucking wrong.
Well, no,
and you just made the point.
No, I did
and
not.
that video was 2013.
Speech,
if I'm correct, am I correct? He said 20. Why is this happening in 2013? That was 10, 11 years ago.
But bro, you know what? One thing that we got to remember too, when we started talking about Black Wall Street, you got to remember that was a very small pocket, very small. It was only 10,000 people. You know what I'm saying? That lived in that area that were prosperous.
Oh, black folks, no, they weren't.
Black Wall Street was
black folks was largely wealthless.
There were
you know what I'm saying?
cities.
Black folks were largely wealthless.
No, that was in Oklahoma. Listen, Black Wall Street, Black Wall Street was solely in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Do we have a Black Wall Street today? Do we have a Black Wall Street today?
Were all over.
Similar, I understand it, but they destroyed Black Wall Street, is what we're saying.
Today,
we talk about it. It's not saying overall black people was up, because we weren't. There was a pocket. Hold on.
Oh, I thought you liked interruptions.
There was a pocket.
Everybody 15 times.
All right, so I sit here the whole time when y'all keep going, and then when I try and interject because you're gonna keep going, now it's cutting off, right?
Pretty much.
Y'all got it.
No. Here's my two questions for you, Law. Number one, do we have a Black Wall Street today? I'm gonna answer that for you. No.
Have you ever been to Hyde Park, Chicago?
I'm gonna ask you.
Have you ever been to Hyde Park in Chicago?
Okay, let me ask you the second question.
No, you asked me. You asked me the question, and then when I answered it, you want another question.
I just said I'm gonna ask you two questions. I stated the premise of where I'm coming from before I even started talking, so you can be patient. So the second question I'm gonna ask you: if Black Wall Street back in the 20s, 30s was still there, or was still here today, would it be an impact on Black economy right now today in 2024?
It absolutely would be. It absolutely would be. But the point is,
obviously, if you left Black,
the point I'm making is it was only when we talk about Black Wall Street and we saying you're using that as an example of Black people. Hold on, you're using that as an example of Black people being up, right? I'm just saying we have to remember it was only 10,000 people that lived in Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
So understood.
It's not like this was prevalent all over, right? This wasn't prevalent all over.
Understood. it was just 10,000 people back in the 30s that were extremely wealthy. And we know that it would have been a huge impact today. We
That's
do
it.
know that a house that cost $10 back in the days costs $1 million today. What I'm telling you, I'm asking you, if you scale that amount of wealth back in the 1920s and 30s and you scale it to today's economy, how much of an impact would that have on the black economy today? It would be, it don't even matter
I'm sure
if
it
it was
would have a
10,000 back
great
then.
impact. But the problem, what I'm saying is, all I'm saying is, it doesn't exist anymore, right? They
Why?
destroyed it. What I'm saying is they destroyed it, but we also have to remember that was a small pocket. It's not like that was going on everywhere. We go back to that because that was the that was the
Hold on.
Alright,
Let me
so
say one more thing, Casey.
So wait, Darwin.
Let me say one more
Just
thing,
like
Casey.
Tulsa, Oklahoma, there was Nicodemus, Kansas City. There was Rosewood, Florida. There was Fort Mose, Florida. There was Oklahoma, Freedmen's Town. There was Texas, Freedmen's Town. These
so
are
out of
all,
those, how many
you
of those
said
were
that there
burned
was
down
not
and
many
destroyed?
pockets.
How
But
many
you're
of those were
saying
burned
that
down and destroyed?
You were
I'm talking
saying
about
that in Black Wall Street was the only one of its kind. Like it wasn't
that.
happening. Ruth
That's
said
not
it
what I
10
said.
times.
That's
She
not
said
what
it
I
was
said.
happening. Ruth said it 10 times that it was happening in other cities
How
around
many
the
were
country.
destroyed like Tulsa, Oklahoma?
That's not what she was saying that you were trying to debunk. You were saying that it was only happening in Tulsa.
No, I did not say
Black
that.
Wall
You
Street.
are assuming. That's not what I said.
Okay.
What I
You said
said
only
was it was
10,000
not
people.
prevalent.
Yeah, you
I
kept
said it
saying
was
there's only
not prevalent,
10,000
and
people.
Black Wall Street was only 10,000 people, is what I said. So
And I
when
said
you're
it
using
was
a point, Darwin, when you're using a point to say that, oh, yeah, we were ahead, it was only 10,000 people in that instance, right?
No, let me correct you. I was using this point to put emphasis on that. The fact that you said it was a small pocket or it was only a small group didn't matter. Because today it would have had a huge, it could have been 100 fucking people back in 1920. If that amount of wealth today, translating today and scaling today, would have been massive. Would have been massive today. Would have been a massive difference in our people. So I'm telling you, for you to sit here and just take that and point out the fact that it was a small population or it was a small pocket, it's not even credible.
No, so Darwin, I agree that especially if you include compound interest and all those things, and the potential for that money to have grown, it could be huge. Why does Black Wall Street not exist today?
It don't exist. It's not that it don't exist because of integration.
Darwin, why doesn't Black Wall Street exist today?
From my understanding, it was destroyed. It was an attack on black economy a number of times, a number of occasions, for some ill intent, malicious intent.
So if someone was to say that due to the malicious intent and attack on the black community, would that be a fair statement?
Can you repeat that? Because you kind of cut off.
If someone was to say that due to that attack on black people and the wealth, it was stolen and prevented from growing in the interest, the people who attacked it are responsible for that not existing today. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely. And I would also say that's one of the factors. The other factors is it discouraged us from coming back together and putting the pieces together. We proved in so many occasions over history, hundreds of years, that if we work together, we can excel no matter how many obstacles or challenges you put in front of us.
not even
Until integration came and crippled us with all this warfare and all this other shit that keeps us in one place, we never even entertain coming together to work out. We don't even have a sense of urgency to come together. We don't have the bugs biting our ass. We don't have the cold winters freezing us at night, making us get off our ass to work together. We're sitting in AC in Section 8 in $500,000 house, paying $100 a month.
No.
What?
We don't have that push no more because they put a blanket on us and said, "Hey, look, this will cover your wounds." And we look at a blanket as a bandage, a temporary bandage.
Well, after Project 2025, we might.
And it just gonna keep continuing. Because we got people on here that don't want to look at the damn research, look at the facts, look at how things transpire and try to understand it. Instead of talking about, oh, he spoke on this, he's just a coon.
He is a coon.
What is the context?